I am Raziel.
What's up, you beautiful bastards? Raziel here again, and this video is going to be super quick. I've done a couple videos about Blood Death Knight because that's what I main, and I've mained since Wrath of the Lich King. And I'm going to do a quick level 70, so this is level capped at Dragonflight talent tree guide. I'm going to just go right into it, not fuck around, and just show you guys what the builds are that are going to probably be the best to run. Now, keep in mind, all of this is subject to change according to what Blizzard does or doesn't do. So let's just start out. So I'm going to do in this order. First, just like a leveling build doesn't really matter, so I'm not going to do that. Do whatever you want for a leveling build. But for raiding, if you're for off tank, main tank, off tank, and raiding, and then some mythic plus options. So let's do main tank raiding first. All right. So you're definitely going to want to pick up. In general, this is going to be the base. There's a couple talents you can switch around if you want to. But this is generally going to be the direction that you're going to want to go, and I'll explain these as we go along. A lot of them are self-explanatory, but you're definitely going to want to have, you have to have Chains of Ice in your interrupt. Permafrost is going to be good because of how much haste extra we're getting. Again, the main stats you're going to be aiming for is a Blood Decay or is Haste Mastery, not Haste Versatility this time around, it's Haste Mastery. Icebound Fortitude, you're going to go into Merciless Strikes to get to Gloomward. This is a key talent here. Into Runic Continuation. Insidious Chill you definitely want. Icy Talons is, in Insidious Chill, a couple other classes can bring this debuff, which is a 5% attack speed, which stacks 4 times on the target you're hitting. If you take it as a Blood Decay, it's also going to make it so other classes don't have to take it and can put talent somewhere else. Empower Rune Weapon, you're definitely going to want, and that's going to be very, very useful. Here in the middle, we're obviously taking Death Strike, Anti-Magic Shell, Anti-Magic Barrier. Now this one, it really buffs our AMS by a lot. It's very, very useful. In most encounters, you're probably going to get a lot of use out of this. If you find an encounter where you don't, this one can be dropped out for something else. Obviously, we're going to take Improved Death Strike to reduce RP cost and increase healing of our main hitting ability that keeps us alive. Bitter Third War just by default to lead us to AMZ. Now, some people may be tempted to go into Assimilation. I think in the vast majority of cases, you're never going to take this because it's based off your versatility. Since we're no longer stacking versatility, getting an extra 10% and some RP, unless there's a huge mechanic in a boss fight where you need an AMZ and this becomes useful, I don't see this happening very often. Obviously, we're going to be on this side, we're going to do Raise Dead because you have to have it. Play now for Blood Death Knights is very much going to be in your own D&D as much as possible. So we are going to do this one here, which makes a Heart Strike hit more targets, and when you're in your Death and Decay. Enfeeble, you could go Sacrificial Pact if you want, but Enfeeble is definitely going to help against boss fights because it's going to put a debuff on your main target for 6 seconds that reduces how much damage they do to you, and you can pop this guy on a 2-minute cooldown to get that. It's just a nice little extra. Brittle also is going to be very useful because it's like a permanent debuff that's you're gonna keep it up as much as possible. That's 6%. You do 6% more damage to them. Okay, go here because you need Might of Thassaran. You just need it to get to the next one. Here we have Unholy Endurance. This is carried over from a Shadowlands trait. The Unholy Endurance is the reason why it's not necessary to take Acclamation, because all Acclamation does is change your Icebound Fortitude from a 3-minute cooldown to a 2-minute cooldown, while this is just another 2-minute cooldown of 15% damage reduction. Very useful. Also makes you immune to sleep, fear, that type of thing. Unholy Ground, 5% haste if you're standing in your Death and Decay. Death's Echo, you're definitely going to want to go with. Obviously, Will of Necropolis, you're going to want to go with. And then Rune Mastery and Abomination Limb. Now you see you have one extra talent to go, and this is completely up to you. If you want, a Blinding Sleep for ads, which you're not really probably going to need in raids. Cold Thirst might be an option for if the fight you're in requires a lot of interrupts. Very, very useful. If you do run into that issue where there's assimilation, you can use that. If you run into the problem where you need to hard CC a target, like an ad in a boss fight, you could go Asphyxiate. You're not really going to get a use out of these two in most raids. Maybe Death's Reach to increase the range of your grip by 10 yards might be a possibility in a fight that's handy. But I would say in most cases what you're going to do here is probably you could get an extra 10% out of your Rune Forges, but I would probably think it's more beneficial at this point just to take IBF down to a 2-minute cooldown. But again, that last point, entirely subjective, up to you, and according to the fight. Okay, now this is going to stay mostly the same in a lot of situations when we're talking about Mythic Plus, and I'll get to that in a minute. But again, we're on single target, main tank raid. So here, we're obviously going to pick up the talents we absolutely need to move forward. You have to take those, no options. You're definitely going to pick up Ossuary. You're going to want to do Improved Heart Strike. You're going to want to do Death's Caress. You're going to want to do Relish in Blood. Rapid Decomp. Again, we're going to be buffing the hell out of our Death and Decay. So we do have these here. You're going to want to grab all the Dancing Rune Weapon. This is going to be one of our main damage abilities, and it's a very, very good DR. We're going to grab these. Now, this talent right here really sucks, but in most cases, you're going to find yourself picking it. Why? Because it's a 1 point cost to get down to here, which we're definitely going to want to get to, as opposed to a 3 talent point here to get there. Rune Tap can be useful, but Leeching Strike, Blood Tap is good, but we're not really resource starved this expansion around. So what do we do to get the last point to unlock the next row? This, again, is going to be subjective. You could do Bloodworms. I would say on a single target boss fight, Bloodworms is going to be the way to go because it's just more damage and a little more healing. So a little more damage, a little more healing. Sanguine Ground, obviously. Iron Heart. Bloodshot is going to be useful because now with Mastery stacking, we are far better at having our blood shields up than we have in the past. It's almost like Warlords, Mr. Pandaria level blood shields going on here. Now we're going to go into Tombstone because it synergizes so well with Dancing Rune Weapon and with Shattering Bone. You're going to want to take that. Now at this point we have 4 points left. What do? I would say in a single target boss fight, again, Gorfine's Grasp, especially since we're going A-Bomb Limb over here, it's just not worth it. It's just not, and you get 2 grips anyway. Gorfine's Grasp is not going to see much use this expansion, unfortunately. It is what it is, though. So for just going for single target, bam, you're going to want to go to Heartrend. Now, if you're on the boss and you're struggling to survive because you're doing progression, definitely go Purgatory, and then I would probably do Red Thirst there. If you're really not struggling at all to survive, you dying is not really happening, you can drop Purgatory. Umbilicus Eternus is not bad, or you could, if you just want to squeak out more damage, you go Hemostasis up here, okay? But generally, this is how you're gonna switch things around. This for survivability. Now, what changes if you're off tank? Not a lot. If you're off tank, I would say the only thing that really changes is you could do, you're obviously going to want to take Hemostasis because you're just going to Death Strike harder. But at this point, if you're off tank, this build over here is going to be pretty much the same. And over here, you're just going to definitely hard focus on the damage instead of survivability. This is a survivability. This is a survivability. This is damage and survivability, but I don't think you're going to see Bone Storm get much use this expansion, really, either. So this is going to be off tank, just really focusing on damage. The only difference is if you're main tank, if you're struggling to die from dying, go Purgatory, or if it's getting close, you're not quite dying, but it's getting close, I would say Umbilicus Eternus is going to be the way to go. Now, what changes on both trees if we're doing Mythic Plus? Now, this is key. So there's not going to be a whole lot that changes over here. You probably will drop Acclamation and either grab Blinding Sleet for an on-demand you know, 1 minute cooldown, you can blind everything and slow everything. That's definitely a good option. You could also go, if you needed more control, you could go Grip of the Dead here, which is going to make your D&D slow everything by 90%, and it decays by 10% every second. So if you need more control, but I don't see that being too big of a thing, especially with A-Bomb Limb. You know, you're running A-Bomb Limb, essentially. You could probably, what I would do to change also, watch this. So you'll probably see Permafrost get dropped. Why? Because your auto attacks aren't really, you're going to be getting hit so much that the shield you get from an auto attack isn't really going to help as much as it does in a single target or up to 3 target fight. So I would say drop Permafrost. The build you're probably going to be running the most in the situation of Mythic Plus is probably going to have Blinding Sleet, and you're probably also going to take Asphyxiate or Grip of the Dead, depending. This is probably going to generally going to be the talents you swap between for Mythic Plus on your main Death Knight talent tree. You could even, if you're finding, you know, if you're finding that you're in a dungeon that doesn't have a whole lot of magic attacks that you need to have a better AMS for, you could drop that and go like this. Okay, so these are some definite options that you can swap between. Again, it's going to be preference and depending on the content, the dungeon that you're actually doing, what mechanics are in that dungeon. Okay, what's going to change over here on the blood tree if you're doing a Mythic Plus? Well, Mythic Plus, you're going to be, if your healer is really good and you're not really dying, you definitely have some options. Again, Gorfreen's Grasp you're probably not going to take, but if you're going survivability, you're probably going to you're definitely in Mythic Plus going to drop Bloodworms. You're just not going to get the benefit out of it that you do in a single target fight. Hemostasis is going to be much more useful because you're going to get healed more during your death strike, so you're probably going to want to take that. I would grab this. You're definitely going to want Red Thirst, Ironheart. You're probably not going to do Bloodshot this time around because your shields are just not going to be up as long when you're doing big pulls to get the benefit out of it. Definitely still taking Tombstone and here. Now, what you're going to do from this point on, since we have 2 points, you have a couple options. If you're dying a lot, or I would probably say Purgatory if you're doing really high keys where the chances of dying are really high. Now this is the rare niche spot you might see someone take Bone Storm. You might see some Bone Storm builds in Mythic Plus depending on your pulls, and it might be able to heal you quite a bit. I would definitely consider as an option. You can do that, or maybe Umbilicus Eternus. Because you're going to get a big absorb shield from that and a big pull as well. Now, if you're not really dying, your healer's on the ball, and you just want as much RP generation, you could do Heartbreaker, maybe 1 point there, and maybe pick up Rune Tap. But pure survivability is going to be something like this, where you grab Rune Tap as well as Purgatory. But yeah, Bloodworms is not going to, the biggest change is Bloodworms aren't going to be nearly as useful. Hemostasis gets more useful. And then from there, you're just going to pick up survivability. Obviously, in Mythic Plus, you want to try to push as much damage as possible and not give it up where you don't need to. So something like that. But generally, guys, that's how you're going to shift around. And again, it's going to be your personal preference, what healer you're running with, how high of a key you're doing in the content, the mechanics of the dungeons you're actually pushing. So anyway, guys, that was as quick as I could make it on Blood Death Knight, updated as of November 9th, 2022. We're about 2 weeks away from Dragonflight. So yeah, guys, if anything changes huge, I'll update it. But as is, this is how it is. Everybody, if you liked the video, leave a like, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, it's fine. Talk shit in the comments. I don't care. Go ahead. Just go fuck yourself. And as always, my friends, keep it real.